Welcome, everybody. My name is Stephanie Slater, and I'm founder and chief executive at School Food Matters. And we're very delighted to welcome over 200 people to this webinar. So it has created a lot of interest. Just a couple of things to share with you first. We have a Q&A functions, which you should see at the bottom of your screens. If you would like to ask a question during this presentation, please use the Q&A. It'll be tricky for us to cover the chat as well. So Q&A is the place to put your questions. If we don't get to your question during this webinar, please email us. At the end of the presentation, you'll see an email address, and the team will come back to you to answer any questions you may have. We are recording this webinar, and it will be available afterwards. Anybody that has registered will receive an email from the team, which will have the webinar recording and also a blog with further information. So I am delighted to kick things off. Obviously, our focus today is really on food. There's a clue in the name of our charity, School Food Matters. So we're very interested in what's going to be served at breakfast clubs as the Labour government rolls out its breakfast policy. So we're going to be having a chat today with some of our experts at School Food Matters. We're going to be talking to some head teachers because they are the ones that know how breakfast works and can give us a first-hand story about how they've managed to establish breakfast clubs in their schools. I'm just going to move on, if I can, to the policy. So we may have some early adopters on this call. So 750 schools are going to test the policy for the department, and we're going to be learning over the next year about how breakfast clubs can be successfully established. There are a couple of principles that early adopters will be asked to follow. The first one, which is of huge interest to us, is that breakfasts need to be healthy. They need to be compliant with the school food standards, which obviously cover the whole school day. There will need to be a minimum of 30 minutes free childcare. So this is framing the breakfast offer. It's an opportunity to extend the school day for all parents. The club has to be open to all children, primary age children on the roll at the school, and it's provided free to parents and carers. And the important part of this test and learn phase is that schools will be reporting on progress and submitting data to the department so that they can fully evaluate the programme and make sure that it's doing what the policy was set out to achieve. So I'm just going to move on to my next slide. So the reason School Food Matters is running this webinar today is for the last 5 years, we've been working with our partners at Impact on Urban Health on a programme called Healthy Zones. Healthy Zones looked at food across the school day, but had a particular focus on breakfast. So we thought it was a really great opportunity for you to hear from some of our colleagues at School Food Matters who have been in schools for the last 5 years, helping schools to develop their breakfast programmes to support children's health. So I'm going to pass over now to my colleague, Eve, who is our Impact and Strategy Manager at School Food Matters, who's going to talk us through some of the evidence and some of the learning. So thank you, Eve.
Thank you, Stephanie. So in my segment, I want to kind of paint a picture of the existing wider evidence base for a healthy breakfast at the start of the school day. And then, as you've said, Stephanie, what we really want to share with you today is some of the learning that we've taken away from those 5 years of practicing in schools, supporting schools to develop either an enhanced or an improved breakfast offer or setting up a new breakfast club. And we're also going to talk a little bit about 3 different types of model of breakfast club that you might like to start thinking about. So, what can I tell you about the evidence to support a healthy breakfast? So, there's plenty of this evidence around. I would start by saying that the most prominent findings are around academic performance. And that's really important because when we're trying to address inequalities in educational outcomes, things that affect academic performance are often really difficult to control for. So breakfast presents a really interesting opportunity to level the playing field that can be addressed through school. And ensuring that children don't start the day hungry supports them throughout the school day. So In addition to that, we can say that offering breakfast improves punctuality and behaviour. There's quite a few papers on that. I would also say it's something that's come out as a strong theme from our own external evaluation of the Healthy Zones programme. To dig in a little bit to that point about improving educational attainment, we know that in Key Stage 1, that looks like 2 months worth of educational progress across the 3 Rs. And also that the biggest difference is seen in children from underprivileged groups. So when those children are eating breakfast, you get the largest impact in terms of their attainment. So skipping breakfast is correlated with stress, anxiety, and depression. It doesn't make you feel good. Any of us on this call who missed their breakfast this morning will be able to attest to that. But what's really interesting is so is eating a nutritionally poor breakfast. So eating something, but not necessarily a nutritionally optimal breakfast, is also associated with low well-being. And that's for primary and secondary school students. So we know, and it's common sense, that providing a nutritionally balanced breakfast increases children's daily intake of fibre, fruit, veg, vitamins, and minerals. So getting children to start the day with a meal rich in micronutrients, as well as fibre, so for example, from wholemeal bread or from oats, is a wonderful opportunity for kids to start the day with. Okay, so let's move on to discuss the findings from our Healthy Zones programme. So since the programme began in 2020, School Food Matters has worked with a total of 36 primary, secondary and all through schools across 7 London boroughs to establish or improve their breakfast club. That's quite a lot of schools. It's about 40% of all of the 80+ schools we've worked with to date through the Healthy Zones programme. So we can say it's been a popular option, and it's definitely been an interesting one to work on. The clubs all varied in size. So some of them were tiny and had 6 pupils. Some of them were really large and had 90 pupils plus. And they also varied in approach. So some were paid for, some were free. And they were all located in schools with higher than average levels of deprivation, which we measured through the percentage of students eligible for free school meals, because that is a criteria of coming onto the Healthy Zones programme. So those clubs got resources, training, help with student engagement, like tasters, breakfast ambassador badges, certificates for trying new food, a wealth of other things. And in some cases, very basic equipment, like a microwave, a pot for porridge, or a blender, to help them extend the variety of food they were able to offer. So what have we learned from this experience? I'm going to start by saying that a key point is the ability to reimagine breakfast. So not thinking of it as just childcare. So I am a parent and I would hesitate to do air quotes around childcare, which is an extremely important thing. But thinking of breakfast as being a really integral part of the school day. So the school day is beginning when children come in to eat. And that can have a kind of, just taking that lens on it will really influence in a positive way what you are hoping to get out of Breakfast Club and the way that you set it up. So we also know that a good breakfast offer is one where nutrition is prioritised both by club staff and senior leadership team. So you're holding different parts of the puzzle. Club staff need to be on board because they're the people presenting and encouraging students to eat this varied offer. SLT hold the cards in terms of being able to support club staff in delivering that key role. So resources, support, training and the rest. We often noticed that there was a bit of a disconnect in the schools that we worked with between the people delivering the class, the club and senior leadership. So it's really worth thinking about what that connection looks like at the moment in your school and thinking about whether you can deepen that connection or re-establish it. We found that students were really receptive to a more nutritious offer and that it was often the adults who were the ones who were a bit unsure about what changing things up might look like. That's a finding that goes across the whole of the school day in all our work in Healthy Zones, but it was relevant at breakfast too. And what we found helped was introducing new foods really slowly. So holding tasting sessions for students to expand the variety of food on offer at the club, and also encouraging staff to eat their breakfast there too. That's always a winner in primaries. And then that links on to the next point about involving students as well. So offering them potentially a role in menu design, getting them to help promote the club. For example, could they be standing in the playground with tester pots? Could they be talking to their parents? Can you be helping them to build up a kind of bubble of excitement around celebrating healthy eating and spreading that throughout the school? Because that can make a really big difference to the success of the club. And then finally, adapting the model to suit your school's needs preferences and capacity. So it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all kind of game. And let's talk a bit about that. So different models of provision for different settings. If we start by thinking about the kind of traditional breakfast club model, so something that starts before the school day, integrates with other activities, for example, childcare. So classically, this would be offered in a different space. It's able to accommodate really large groups, I guess, depending on the space you have available. Because you're all together in a dedicated area, it means you can generally offer a wider selection of food and potentially food with higher nutritional value. People can sit down to eat it. The barriers around it tend to be that you need that space initially and also facilities for food prep and service. They might not be radically complex. It could just be a trestle table, could be a microwave, could be a porridge pot. You don't necessarily have to have access to the kitchen. So you're going to need a bit of upfront investment for facilities and an early start, which can be challenging for staff and some students. And our tips to work around that would be make sure you allow 90 to 120 minutes for preparation, serving and cleanup, especially if you're serving something a bit more advanced like scrambled eggs, and to use a mixture of easy prep foods and daily specials. So daily specials keep life a bit exciting. Easy prep foods mean you're not spending ages preparing the food. And you'll need one member of staff, we think, for 20 to 25 students. Moving on, we have a model where we eat breakfast in the classroom. So in my experience, schools tend to have quite strong responses to this. Some of them love the idea, and some of them feel a bit funny about the idea of students eating in classroom. What we've found is that there are settings where this works really, really well, and that its primary benefit is that it's able to reach more students. I mean, I guess potentially all students, including those who might otherwise miss breakfast or be late to school. And you're serving that breakfast also in a familiar setting, which is worth thinking about for students who might find a different setting, particularly when they're eating food, disruptive. So potentially SEND students as well. So the opportunities around this, that it's ideal for schools with limited space, or schools where students are generally arriving on a bus, so it's very difficult to get them in early, reaches more students, can be really effective in smaller schools. But if you're dealing with a lot of people, you might need to make some tweaks. The barriers are, if it's not done right, it can be disruptive to introduce food into the classroom space. Again, it can limit your food options. That's not to say you can't have some really good, nutritionally balanced ones. It's just that you're likely going to be serving them on a napkin or in a pot. And you might need some extra staff for that moment where you're bringing the food out to minimize disruption. So that's the second model. The third one I want to talk to you about is grab and go. So this model is really scalable for larger schools. And the challenge here is simply maintaining nutritional balance with something that you can hold in your hand and eat as you walk along. So it can be really effective, just needs a little bit of thought ahead of time. So we're talking about serving pre-prepared food from one or more communal areas as people come in. So you need less staffing, less infrastructure, can really support punctuality because there's obviously a reward to turning up to school a few minutes earlier. You are having to think carefully about how to introduce the nutritional variety that we'd ideally like to see, but that's not to say it's not possible. And students, they might not have enough time to finish or fully engage with their meal. It's certainly not something that you're spending time connecting with the senses for, you're eating it on the go. So our tips are that it's good to be efficient in terms of distributing it so you can help students who are in a rush. You still need to think about prep time for getting all the items ready to be grabbed, and pre-prepared items like yogurt and fruit work best. So in terms of summing up breakfast for success, so we want you to think about being flexible and thinking about the best way to make sure that all students have access to this service when you're designing your breakfast club provision. So often this means combining a couple of the different options we've just presented so that all the children can get food. So a classic combo might be grab and go for early arrivals and classroom for people who are arriving either on time or slightly late. And of course, there's a crossover between students who regularly arrive late and students who aren't getting breakfast at home. So adapt your service to address barriers around tardiness, cultural preferences, allergies, which I know all of you will be thinking about already, and special educational needs. Think a bit about that balance between nutrition, convenience, and inclusivity. So there is a sweet spot to be hit, and we will be sharing an awful lot of resources at the end of this webinar and then afterwards that have got much more detail on that for some of the best practice that we've seen around that offer. So you're thinking about something that's nutritious, but easy to get ready and really quick to eat. So we're in the kind of fruit, yogurt, toast field for some of these options, alongside popular items and different items. So you've got that variety that keeps your menu interesting and boosts engagement in the club. And then lastly, it's really worth gathering support from the whole school community to help you with this. So engage with your staff, your parents, your students, get everybody thinking about the benefits of Breakfast Club. It's a moment to really get people thinking about the value of healthy eating as well. Involve them in the decision making, train everybody up, make sure everyone's feeling really motivated for this as a positive opportunity for the school. Okay.
Thank you, Eve. Well, I hope you picked up a few tips there. We'll be going into more detail about the food offer a little later, but that was a really helpful overview. Thanks very much, Eve. I'm now going to have a chat with one of our head teachers who's going to give us a bit more information about what actually happens in his school. So James Robinson, welcome. Thank you for being with us. James is head teacher at Bird in Bush, which I would say is a larger school, so 2 form entry, but up to about 500 children. Is that right, James?
Right.
Yeah. And it was interesting to really understand the numbers, because obviously this policy is going to be available to every child in the school. So it's good to hear from somebody who's dealt with some big numbers in the past. So James, let's start. So back in 2022, one of my colleagues, Ayana, worked with your school to help you set up a breakfast club for the first time. So can you tell us a bit, going back to 2022, can you tell us a bit more about setting something up from a standing start? It's super interesting to a lot of the people on this call.
Right. Well, you're coming live from the Ilkent Road. Playtime may just start in 5 minutes outside the window, so we'll wait and see. We are an amalgamation of 2 local authority community primary schools, and in 2022 we were introduced to School Food Matters really from the example of their work at Coburg Primary School, which was the school where which shut, made the press. It was a big issue on the Ilkent Road, where we're in a falling roll area, and Camelot was the school which we were running at the time. And we went into Coburg and saw what School Food Matter was doing with Coburg, and thought, oh, perhaps we could try it at Camelot. We just had apprehension. We have too many children. They all come on their own. About 75% of our children come on their own, not with parents, outside the gate and for the morning. And it was just an area of anxiety. But we were handheld with some of your team who are in the call today. I noticed we had workshops with our Spanish community. I remember that one. Marina did workshops to encourage them to take their advice. How are they going to get their children in? We had a little anxiety from that community. We are 75% Afro-Caribbean community, and so we wanted to play to those strengths. And we just, I suppose we took the lunge. I suppose we just jumped in head first, and it was hypnotic for a few months, maybe longer. But by 2023, we were establishing an amalgamated school, so we had to be able to offer what the Coburg children had been offered at Coburg. So when we started in September 2023, which is now sort of 18 months ago, we went for full on board, and they responded very positively in terms of attendance to it. Our children started coming. And a year and a half on later, we're now feeding around about 150 to 200 children a day, in the probably slightly like the first model that you gave, Eve, but I don't know about the staff ratio. I think CCTV in the dinner hall helps, because the children know they're being watched. So that counts as 5 staff, the head teacher watching them on a playback. Because we get so many children through the door, because it's all free. And it's optional. It's open to all. We open the gate at 8:20. You have to be in by 8:30 to get free breakfast, and then we close the gate and then we open the gate at 8:35. We have a nursery option as well, which provides a separate provision for just nursery children. A nursery is about 35 children, and about 25% of those children attend. So we are hitting about 25% to 50%, up to 35% probably a day. That's a good starter.
So James, tell me, so you've already got really good numbers. Have you got any strategies for boosting engagement with some of your families that when you want to get their children through the door? Is there a way of driving take up, if you like, if this policy is designed for every child in every school? Have you got any tips?
Two of the most successful things was offering those families so we have the normal breakfast club provision. We charge £2.50 a day for 7:45 attendance. School starts at 8:45. So those parents were targeted to get them to come to the 8:20 provision. And if they were mulling over whether they wanted 8:20, we were offering them 7:45 provision. And that pulled in quite a few of them when they took away all the concerns before school. As long as you get them up, we'll take care of them, and also we'll feed them. And so we got quite a few of them coming into 7:45 free. So a lot of it free. And I suppose the other one which we did, which stole off another head teacher, early morning PE. So before school every day we have year 3 on Monday, 4 on Tuesday, 5 like that. And each year group from year 2 to year 6 has a free morning session, 8 o'clock to 8:45 of an extra PE session. If it's cold, it's indoors. If it's out, so. And then they all eat. So if you offer them breakfast, that multiplied the numbers enormously. So early morning PE showed them what breakfast was, and it's good breakfast. We are very simple on our breakfast. Our offer is about 5 staple diets, all within school food matters advice. But we don't get to the scrambled egg as much as we do get to the toast and the cereal and the porridge.
Great, that's really interesting. So if we think about your numbers at the moment, and whether you're an early adopter, James, I'm not sure, or whether you're going to have to wait to 26 to access the programme. So potentially every child in your school will be able to come and have a breakfast. Are you going to be able to accommodate them? Logistically, is that going to be a challenge for you? It sounds like you're pretty versatile.
We wouldn't be able to accommodate 450 in the same way we didn't think we could accommodate 150 2 years ago, 18 months ago. Maybe in 18 months, I'll be saying, oh, look, we're feeding 450. Maybe we need to go to the classroom. I hadn't really thought about what you've said about the classroom model. Maybe it would work. But what we've seen is a great success. Our attendance rate, we're above, we find a lot of challenges in many areas, but the only thing we're really above national averages on is attendance. And we were not, when we took Coburg over, it was 92.9, and we got 96.5 last year. There's got to be a correlation, hasn't there? If you could put your finger on it. So I wouldn't ever turn down the opportunity to try and give breakfast to every child, but I can't believe it would work. But 18 months' time, maybe it will. We'll see.
Yeah, well, going back to 2022, you were a bit daunted by the idea of getting 20 children in. So this is really, really good to hear. So let's think. We have this new policy. Some of the people on the call will be early adopters. They will have heard by now whether they've got a place on the pilot. And some will be waiting till 26th. If there was one piece of advice you could give to some of the people on the call about starting this, what would it be? What's the top tip?
I heard the lady on the EEF call say the bagel cutter. I went and got my bagel cutter out and said that's a top tip. So if you were thinking, I'll probably go with CCTV in the dining room, because the ratios of staff, we just didn't have the ratios of staff. The cost. If I'm paying the staff X amount of money per hour for that hour, the cost of the food as well. So obviously. Teaching the children that VAR works in our school, make a mistake. So that's one thing, CCTV. But I suppose we got the Greggs breakfast offer for the bread. So we get our bread through Greggs, and that was something which has supported us enormously. So we applied for the Greggs breakfast offer. It was better than the Kellogg's one. It was, sorry, should I not use the names? It was better than the other one, Tesco. And we went for the Greggs one, and they give us, as long as we pick it up, they are phenomenally supportive of bread, one thing. But that helps enormously the cost.
Well, that's really, really useful. And James, will be looking more at the costing of a healthy, nutritious breakfast a little bit later. We've got one of our nutritionists, Antonio, will be talking about this. But this is really, really helpful. I'm going to just see if there are any quick questions that we have. I've got my trusty colleague here, Sav. So we have a question from the audience. What steps did you take to make sure parents and children were aware of the new free breakfasts? And how did you highlight the benefits of children starting the day with a nutritious meal? So that's a communications question. It's a good one, actually. Obviously, reaching out to parents is really important in a way that's going to be well received. So how have you been able to communicate the benefits?
We're a newsletter school. Our school's not good on websites. The engagement's not good. So it's a kind of billboard school. We put the newsletter on a billboard out in the front and in the school street, and it's out there. So we're very visible in terms of telling the parents that it's available. But equally, we've done texting because they don't drop off. So it's that. We did hit them with a definite offer. I suppose the PE got so many parents seeing it because they were bringing in at 8 o'clock and they're worried about. So there are a lot of them. They do come more at 8 o'clock to drop off their children than 8:45 when there's people movement. In terms of the latter part, I couldn't. What was the latter part of that question? It was about.
It was just really about communicating the benefits. How do you explain to your parents that this is an offer worth taking up?
Yeah, I don't think I'm there yet. I would be fair to say I don't think I've done that yet. Maybe that's to come.
Well, we can certainly help you with that. There's lots of evidence to support the benefits. So this is really, really helpful, James. Thank you so much for taking the time. I am going to move us on because we're going to hear from my colleague, Antonia, who has done a bit of a deep dive into how to provide breakfast that meets the school food standards. You'll hear us say that a lot over the next, I don't know, 50 minutes left, that breakfast, whatever we serve, come the pilot or come 2026, it needs to meet the school food standards. So Antonia is going to tell us a bit more about how we've managed to do that.
Thank you, Stephanie. And it was so great to hear James talk about all the amazing work at Coburg. It was actually the first breakfast club that I worked at when I joined School Food Matters. And I still hold them very dear to my heart. So I'm glad that really inspired all the new approaches at Bird and Bush. But yeah, now that we've heard a little bit about all the incredible evidence to show that healthy breakfast is really important for children's health, let's look at what makes a balanced breakfast balanced and what makes it school food standards compliant. So a breakfast that is balanced for primary school children does include a variety of food groups which help provide essential nutrients and energy. So what we'd like to see is a source of carbohydrates, ideally whole grain. So this could be porridge, this could be a whole grain toast, a variety of cereals. Then we also think of a balanced breakfast having a source of protein. This can easily be done through adding, for example, yogurt or through scrambled eggs, as Eve mentioned earlier. We also like to see a portion of fruit or a vegetable. Fruit tends to be a little bit easier in breakfast club settings, but if you had a bit more time to do a slightly more exciting option, you could add some vegetables into an omelette rather than doing scrambled eggs. Loads of ways to get those in, or doing cucumber sticks with a bit of hummus on the side as a snack option. A source of dairy is also really important, or a dairy alternative. Again, if you're offering yogurt, for example, you'd have your source of protein and dairy in one option. If you're serving porridge or cereal, then milk is obviously already part of that meal. And we suggest to all schools to add water as the primary source of hydration. So the school food standards are intended to help children and young people develop healthy eating habits and ensure that they get the right nutrition and have enough energy to get through the day and thrive in the classroom. They do apply throughout the whole school day, so you might be really aware of them at lunchtime, but actually to be school food standards compliant, you need to look at your provision at breakfast, break time, and after school clubs as well. The government guidance on that is published online, which is really clear on what is part and is school food standards compliant if you want to look into that. But we have a few tips on how you can make sure that your club is compliant. So some of these helpful tips are that fruit and vegetables do need to be available at all school food outlets. So I know sometimes the storage of fruits and vegetables can be a little bit challenging, but it is really, really important to have these available at all school food outlets to comply with the standards. So you could do this through having a handheld piece of fruit, using it as a topping for yogurt or porridge, or just cut it up and serve it on the side of a piece of toast, for example, or adding some cut up banana on top of toast. Free fresh drinking water must also be available at all times. So if you are opting for other drinks options at your breakfast club, make sure that there's always water available. Pastries and starchy foods cooked in oil. So this would, for example, at breakfast be a hash brown. At lunchtime, we'd be looking at chips, for example, or roasted potatoes. They shouldn't be served at breakfast club to help you ensure that your school is compliant throughout the day, because these items are limited throughout the school day, throughout the week. You can also not serve cakes, biscuits, or confectionery at breakfast. So this would mean that we want to stay away from anything that's chocolate coated when we look at cereals, for example. We also can't have chocolate spread or biscuit or marshmallow spread on toast to be compliant. Baked beans are a great option to add for breakfast, but we do want to make sure that these are low sugar and low salt options, and we wouldn't want to serve them more than once a week on your menu. And just a last tip is to watch out for some high sugar foods. So especially at breakfast club, opting for low sugar jams can be a good way to reduce the amount of sugar. Having plain yogurts and then adding fruit to those to sweeten them, and having cereals without added sugar or honey, and then offering some honey to sweeten them for each child individually are great options to do so. As we mentioned, we have a few costed menu options for you. So now that we have the guidance on how much money we have available, these are some of the menus that we have developed for schools over the years that are really basic, and they do come in under 30p per child per day. So the two menus that you see here would cost about £1.35 per child per week, and we costed that as a total average. We went to all of the different major supermarkets to make sure that we have an average cost. So this is not the sort of cheapest option that we could find. We made sure it was a good average, so it's a good representation. So you can see here the assumed portions would be that half of the children would be opting for cereals, half of them would be opting for toast. Every child would have access to a portion of fruit, and on the second menu you'd also have an option of yogurt as another alternative. And then we also just wanted to show you a slightly more extensive menu where we're adding porridge as an option. So if you had access to a microwave, or you had access to your school kitchen where you could do porridge on the hob, then this again comes in at £1.40 per child per week. So again, a really good low-cost option where you're adding loads of variety in for children to explore new foods. And we'll go into that in a little bit. I'll pass back to you, Stephanie.
Thank you. Thanks, Antonia. It's really great. We'll hear back from you later. But now I'm going to talk to our next head teacher. So Carol Gold, are you there, Carol? Hello.
Hi. Hey,
welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for doing this today. Carol is head teacher at St Mary Magdalene at St Stephen's Church of England Primary School in Westminster. And may I say, I had the pleasure of visiting your breakfast club before Christmas, and I could see the number of children enjoying that offer. So tell me a bit about it. So in your school, about 25 to 50 children, is that right, attend breakfast clubs? So tell us about that. When they walk in, what do they see?
So we get varied numbers. We ask parents to book in advance on our School Gateway app, and I'd say probably about 60% of them do. And other than that, they just turn up, which is fine because we've got some phenomenal staff running our breakfast club. And from my listening to what's being talked about already this morning, for me, the most important thing is the staff that you choose to run it. I mean, they are just, our breakfast club would fall on its face without the wonderful Anna and Rachel. They are just fantastic, and not just from a food preparation side of things, which is what Anna does, but actually from an engagement of the children and the parents and the other staff that she pulls in from Rachel's point of view. And it is really, if you're thinking about starting a breakfast club, it's hugely important to get the right staff. And for us, it was important to get staff that weren't class-based staff. So these members of staff, rush from breakfast club straight into the classroom, straight to do lunch duty, straight into after school club. Breakfast club is their focus. Anna then goes off and does other things in her working week, and Rachel actually becomes our premises lead in school. So she wears two quite distinctive hats, one where she's working with the children doing breakfast club, and one when she's fixing broken toilets and other bits and pieces. So but when the children come in, they basically have a choice of two different types of breakfast. They've got a help yourself breakfast that's on the table, that's laid out with cut fruit, cut vegetables, cereal, homemade hummus, some sort of pizza stuff that Anna's knocked together, and other bits and pieces that she'll have on the table. Or they can go to the Breakfast Club kitchen, which is a glorified cupboard with a microwave and a toaster and a sink, and they can order a home cooked food. So they can get eggs, they can get beans, they can get hoops, they can get toast, bagels, cream cheese, pancakes, all sorts of different things. So there's a wide variety of nutritionally positive food, and I think that's from our school, that's what we learnt most from working with yourselves, because we had a breakfast club already up and running. And in fact, I inherited Anna and Rachel when I came to the school. So they've been here for goodness knows how long. I don't even ask. But they're absolutely passionate about the nutritional benefits of breakfast, but also the social emotional benefits of breakfast and the relational stuff that happens in breakfast club that doesn't happen at other points in the school day, which is why for us it works really well to have staff that aren't class based working in breakfast club. Parents really respond to having a different face to talk to, a different somebody that they've known for years. It's not just a different teacher and different TA that they're getting each year. So for us it works quite well on that side of things.
Really, that's really great. I'm just going to loop back to the changes you made. So when you started working with our gang at School Food Matters, what were the changes that you made? Because you already had a club, and was there anything about those changes that surprised you?
Yes. Well, first of all, you were very clear we couldn't serve juice. So the apple juice and the orange juice went out the window, which was a fight with the staff, not the children. The children have took to it really well, but my goodness, convincing Anna that we couldn't serve apple juice and orange juice was a battle. However, to her credit, she came on board. So no juices, no breadsticks, because apparently there's no nutritional value in them. Who knew? That's what we were told. We also used to have a bit of a relationship with Marks and Spencer's in Paddington, who used to give us all of their unsold muffins, cakes and pastries and other bits and pieces. And you went, yeah, that can't happen. So we went, all right, which was a bit of a shame. And we thought we were going to really get pushback from the children or the parents, but actually the parents were overjoyed that we really had reduced the amount of availability of those highly sugared.
I'm very glad you brought this up, Carol. This is a really interesting thing for us, because there is a perception that if you take away, it's the same with lunch, if you take away pudding and custard, there's going to be a riot. And it's not what we see when we're out and about in schools. And just on your point about juice, it's a really interesting point. We know that within the school food standards, you are allowed 150 ml of fresh juice. We tend to encourage our schools, as you've learned, Carol, to just remove it from breakfast then if there is an option further in the day, because it has to balance across the whole school day, in fact the menu week. So it's really interesting that you didn't have too much of a pushback on that one, other than the staff. That's really good.
No, not at all. Actually, the children adopted all of those changes really quite quite well, which was good.
Fantastic, good to hear. So I'm going to ask you the same question I asked you, James. Lots of people on this call are going to be doing this for the first time. What's the one piece of advice you would like to share?
I think get the right staff, get the right people that can develop relationships with children that are not replicating the in-classroom relationships. And I think that for my school, we have, about 40% of our attendees don't pay for breakfast club. So we run from 7:40 a.m. through to 8:45 when our gates open for a soft start. And so about 40% of them don't pay, and we encourage them to come to support attendance for children that are reluctant to come to school, or for families that are struggling with chaotic mornings. And so they come. So for me, having the staff in there that I know I fully trust with those children that are our most vulnerable children in the school is hugely important. So getting the right staff is really important.
Yeah.
And actually ask the question of your school community, not necessarily just your staff, who would be willing to come in and be at the beginning start of this journey. It's also important that we pay, as a school, we pay a lot of extra hours for Anna primarily to do preparatory work. So she cooks, she will spend time pre-cooking pancakes that she will then have in the fridge that she just then heats up on I think they do pancakes once a week or something. I'm not actually familiar with the menu as much as I used to be, although when Anna's off and I'm cooking the menu, I am familiar with it because I definitely step in. But yeah, I would say the staff are really important.
That's a really, really good point. And obviously this new policy from the Labour government is going to support staff costs too. So that's really going to be a bit of a bonus to many schools.
But in fairness, sorry, just to cut across you, as we all know from working, long in the tooth, working with governments, it never covers the cost. And
no, indeed.
We'll have to invest in it.
Yeah.
And really important to, we take a hit on Breakfast Club all the time, but it provides such a valuable those families that need it because it supports the working parents, but also the families that need it because it supports getting the children to school. We're prepared to do it. And actually, if we take a little bit of money from our pupil premium grant in order to support that, then that's what we do.
Brilliant. So because you understand the benefits. So I've got one question that we've got time for before we move on. So one question from the floor there. As a smaller school, were you concerned about having sufficient space and equipment to support your breakfast club? What advice would you give to small schools on how to make the most of the available room and resources? So about the cupboard.
We have one space in our school that we use for everything, which is our school hall. And basically our school hall becomes breakfast club in the morning. It's our assembly space. It's our lunch time space. It's our PE space. It is our after school club space. And so we just, excuse me, we prioritize that, and we are lucky enough to have a very small, literally it was a cupboard that we stripped out the shelves from and we put a sink in, and it became the Breakfast Club kitchen. But that's a very, very grand title for what is a very space with a fridge, a microwave, a toaster and a sink.
Amazing. Well, look, I've seen it in action and it's amazing what you do. And may I say that in the time that I was at school, from having breakfast, I walked around the grounds and came back and there was a dance class happening in the same space. Yeah. So it just shows how versatile spaces need to be in schools. Yeah. But thank you, Carol. That is really, really helpful. Please stay with us if you can. And we're going to move on. We're going to move back to Antonia, who's going to talk to us now about making the most about the breakfast offer and see what else is on offer in schools. Thank you, Antonia.
Thank you, Stephanie. Absolutely. So now that we've heard that breakfast is not only a great opportunity to feed children, it can also help them develop healthy habits that they can take into adulthood. So let's look at some of the ways in which we can kind of make the most of breakfast as a moment to further children's learning and development. So with expanding children's food palettes, that's really one of the things that we found has worked best in our work in healthy zones. So working with clubs to try new foods, getting children involved with serving the food at Breakfast Club provides a really, really great opportunity to engage their peers to try new foods. So sometimes when an adult offers them food, they feel a little bit more apprehensive, but if it's somebody that they go to class with, they're a little bit more open to trying new foods that they might have not seen before. Running tasting sessions before you add something new to the menu also gives the opportunity to children to taste very mindfully and confidently and help them understand and talk a little bit more about their preferences. And it also gives them more ownership over the breakfast offering. Having a variety of food options within the menu can also possibly help with attendance and make sure that children are getting a variety of foods throughout the course of the day. And running regular feedback sessions also, again, encourage them to take a bit more pride and ownership of their breakfast club. This is something that your existing student council might be able to take a lead on, or you could set up a food ambassador scheme to help you with some of those actions. So getting children involved, get them to be really creative. Ask them to name some of the days on the menu. They might be able to name your breakfast club. It's a really fun way for them to take ownership of that space and influence the way that they feel about it. You can also set up creative activities. So we talk about the fact that there needs to be that 30-minute of childcare provision. So once they've eaten, you could get them to draw posters for the breakfast club, to decorate the room. They can also help you decorate the menu, or they could even just draw what they ate at breakfast club on paper plates, and you can use that to send out in newsletters or just to decorate the rest of your school. Doing tasting sessions is another really great way to get children involved. So as I mentioned, children are more keen to try something if one of their peers has offered it to them. Another good way to do this in a more structured way would be by awarding certificates. So having something where they may be collecting stickers or certificates every time they try a new food can be really, really exciting for them. Setting up actual breakfast club monitors. So at Coboard, actually, that's what we did. We got the children to apply to become a breakfast club monitor, and they got a little badge, and then they had specific responsibilities around the club, which could either be, helping serve the food to their peers, or help with cleanup afterwards, or sometimes even helping with some of the food preparation. And lastly, you could also set some challenges to spice things up. So we've worked with schools that had a Eating the Rainbow challenge. So then we had a different coloured fruit or veg on the breakfast club menu every single day, and children could tick off when they tried it. I wanted to quickly talk about one of our case studies as well. So trying new foods at Breakfast Club has always been at the heart of what we do with our Healthy Zones project. So while we do a lot of the practical tips of removing juice or adding in porridge, for example, we also always want to make sure that the excitement around foods plays a big part in a breakfast club. So one of our Southwark primary schools did want to make their breakfast menu a little bit more balanced. So they did move away from croissants and crumpet, and instead added more fruit, added some more dairy options, and they did actually go out and try scrambled eggs and porridge as well as a special. So this is not something you might do every day, but once a week you might want to have a special to, again, keep the club exciting. And here we did really encourage children to try new foods through having these breakfast champion certificates. And that was something that worked really, really well. Actually, during this time, one of the pupils at the school stated that they won't eat fruit, and then they did actually go ahead and tasted a grape that week, and then they tried a strawberry the next week. So it can be a really great moment as well for some of our fussier eaters. And this is just a really lovely quote from that school, where our breakfast club lead said, "It has been amazing how the children have adapted to the fruit and yogurt from the very young to the older children. It has proved successful. Now that we've all our equipment, we will be trying out eggs and other healthy options and hope that these will be just as popular. I must admit, I thought the children would miss their usual breakfast, but they have adapted very well." So as you can see, even if there's some initial worries about the menu, we do usually see really positive results.
Thank you, Antonia. It's interesting, isn't it, that theme about children being resistant to change. We're not seeing it in our schools. It's really great that they're open to new ideas and become moving from being cautious eaters to courageous eaters. So let's see if we can encourage a bit more of that. Thank you, Antonia. Okay, to our last head teacher, Jared Brading. Jared is head teacher at two schools, the Federation of Sacred Heart and St Mary's in Wandsworth. So Jared, welcome. Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks, Stephanie.
This is an interesting, because we're moving to a different model. We've spoken to two schools that run their own breakfast club, and they have what we call an in-house model. So Jared is going to tell us a bit more about his relationship with Magic Breakfast. So Jared, can you just quickly paint us a picture of what school breakfast looks like at your school and your work with Magic Breakfast?
Yeah, okay, Stephanie, so as you mentioned, we've already have an in-house model at St Mary's and Sacred Heart. We've had running breakfast clubs for 15, 16, 17 years now. So we have a large number of children coming in with working parents, and then free places that we support through them. So they're there, and I'm very interested in your presentations you've shared about looking back at the menu on those breakfast clubs and perhaps reinvigorating that, thinking about some of the standards of the nutrition that we've been serving for quite a long time. So there's those children coming in now anyway. At the same time now, there are staff members cooking, roasting or toasting bagels as part of our work with Magic Breakfast. So we were approached from the council to ask if we wanted to pilot with Magic Breakfast. We have actually worked with Magic Breakfast for a number of years now, but this is a new pilot at Wandsworth to encourage us to move to a grab and go model for all children in both schools. The Sacred Heart has 400 children, St Mary's has 200 children. So at St Mary's now we have children, adults from Breakfast Club toasting bagels while they're still serving all the other breakfasts to the other children and encouraging that activity. They then go into hot boxes, like your Deliveroo man comes round, and we have bagel monitors that go to each door at St Mary's, and we have 6 children on a rotational basis who are bagel monitors, and they stand at each door where the children come in. So we have an early years entrance, a Key Stage 1 entrance, and a Key Stage 2 entrance. And these bagel monitors hand out bagels to anyone arriving at the normal opening time, 10 to 9, and then to anyone who wants a bagel at all. So the whole school is able to access a bagel if they want. They take it then to eat on their way to their classroom and to finish in their classroom. They get a napkin and their bagel. The bagel size is dependent upon for the size of the child. So we do cut them a bit smaller for the nursery children, but we do that there. So that's been a real success at St Mary's. The other school with a busier breakfast club, 70, 80 non-paying and paying children, were a bit more resistant to the idea of grab and go, looking at the staff, looking at the logistics, how they could make it work, whether or not it was going to be possible. So I brought them over to St Mary's, showed them what happened, and they've decided to roast their bagels in the oven so they can get maximum volume in to try and meet the 400. They put them in big hot boxes, and 2 members of staff wheel them out to the front entrance, and then children come to them as they're queuing up, and we get through all the children in. In both schools, all those bagels are brought back to the reception for anyone who is late to collect a bagel, kept in the hot box, and then they're put outside for playtime, so there's no wastage. So yeah, so that's what breakfast looks like. You say you've got an in-house model, a lot of children sat down various times, and other people at the gate.
That's a really interesting model. So a bit of a mashup between the 2 different models, and obviously some of the schools on this call who will be extending their breakfast programs because of the new government policy. This is a really interesting way of reaching the numbers you want to reach. So I'm kind of interested to know how the families and your wider community has responded to this offer.
It's really interesting. There's a couple of parents who said, why are you doing this? So what we've already had breakfast, our children just going to eat more. Whereas if they don't want it, they don't take it. Children are quite sensible. They know if they're still hungry or not. And then the vast majority of parents made no comment at all, but their children have taken a bagel and really appreciate the offer every day. So it instantly, those parents who were resistant looked at the numbers of children who actually did want a bagel, and they had to confront their own sort of prejudices and roll back from it. So it's been really successful. There's never any comment about it now. In fact, parents who are late are still hoping that their children can get a bagel. Children are asking if there's any bagels left over, and it's just a part of the school life now. And it's been, I'll tell you one thing that's been really good. I was reading about it in one of the magazines. We have bagel monitors. Those bagel monitors know all the children's names at those gates now. And so they greet them by name. Hi, Olivia, do you want a bagel? Hi, Richard, do you want a bagel? And it's brilliant. And then even more than that, Stephanie, there was a child the other day crying who didn't want to come in. And I asked the bagel monitor to come and hold her by the hand and take her in. And she said, hi, Lucy, come on in. And that Year 5 child brought the reception child in. And we're just creating those buddy systems and those informal relationships that really make school work because of the responsibility the children take to their role. So yeah, it's been really good.
It's really interesting hearing that theme of supporting children's well-being and their mental health, if you like, through the Breakfast Club. So that's a really important theme that's coming out of this. Do you recruit your bagel monitors? Is there a way? Do you apply to be a bagel monitor?
Yeah, they're taken from I have to say they're from the Breakfast Club in-house offer. So because they're here, they're already on site, and we rotate them through Breakfast Club. So they've already had their breakfast. Instead of doing activities or whatever they were doing, they go and do the bagel monitor, the bagel setup. But yeah, and it's not a a difficulty recruiting bagel
Yeah.
monitors, I have to say. It's not a hard sell. They love it. They really
I can remember back when dinosaurs roamed, I was a milk monitor. So I can remember the sense of privilege. It's a lovely, lovely thing to hear that buddy system is really working for reaching some children who are feeling unsure. That's really great. So I'm going to ask you that other question that I've asked the other two. We've got lots of people on this call that are going to be doing this for the first time. The one piece of advice you would want to pass on.
I mean, I was thinking about this. Grab and Go has been a revelation, Stephanie, for us. We've had a breakfast club. We had up to 100 children before in St Mary's, which is 50-cent free school meals. We had lots of children coming in for free and all sorts of things like that. But Grab and Go has taken a lot of pressure off it. So for my normal in-house breakfast club, staffing is important. Children's routines are important. What are they going to do? Think about those activities. Breakfast only takes 10, 15 minutes. What are they going to do for the other half an hour? And if you set that up properly, that can be a real enhancement to school life. They can perhaps read, they can do some activities, all sorts of things that can calm them and prepare. But for Grab and Go, it's about child ownership. Perhaps make sure you involve your, whatever it is, your school council, involve your faith friends, involve anybody who has a role, and make that sort of cross-year group connection and relationship a real plus for the school. And that's what's worked really well for us. They now read with each other, all sorts of things that you do naturally, but they know each other's names. It's been really, really helpful.
Brilliant. That's really good to hear. And again, I'm hearing this theme of involving children when you're developing your program, and hearing those young voices and helping them feel some sort of ownership. That's come out in all of the presentations, I think. So
yeah, but also 400 bagels is a big challenge. And we're looking now how we can enhance that with fruit for the Grab and Go offer, not just the in-house offer, how we can make that work and how we can make additions to the menu work. But actually, I know I've spoken to secondary colleagues who are doing that now as well. I'm trying to feed 400 or 500 kids as they come through the gate, and we've proved you can do it. And I think that's the important bit.
Really good to hear. Thank you so much, Jared. Now we're going to wrap up shortly, but we just wanted to finish by, I'm going to hand back to Eve, who's just going to talk through some next steps. Thank you, Eve.
Hello, everybody. I have been working through the Q&A that we have to try and answer as many of your queries as possible. So I haven't got to the bottom of it, and we've got a selection of really, really good ones on there. So just to reassure you before we wrap up that anything that has not been responded to on there, we will provide a response after the session. We want to make sure we cover everything, and it's really fascinating to see the thoughtful ideas and queries and things that are coming out. So in terms of next steps and resources, I just want to flag how rich we are in terms of resources, and how much of the thinking around providing this kind of varied and nutritious breakfast in a range of different ways has already been done by us at School Food Matters as a result of working with those 36 wonderful schools on breakfast. So all of that knowledge is condensed into a range of resources. The biggest one, which will be circulated both in the chat here and then afterwards along with the blog, is our Breakfast Club guide, which contains so much wonderful stuff. So we've got fully costed menus that are adapted to different kinds of settings and facilities, shopping lists, recipes, guidance and resources for getting children involved and excited about your club, information about applying the school food standards. It's all there. And I would strongly encourage you to open it up and take a peek, because it's all been designed with the goal of making life much, much easier for schools to provide that kind of breakfast offer. In terms of other next steps, as Sav has said, we'll be sharing some links and following up with a blog which covers some of these key points. And of course, we'll be responding to any queries that we haven't got to over the course of the session.
Great. Fantastic. Eve, what a lot to think about. And thank you so much to our 3 head teachers who've given up their lunch break to talk to us today. So we're very grateful. Thank you to the over 200 schools and participants that have signed up today. I hope you found it fascinating. If you missed out, any of the slides will be circulated, so you haven't missed any important information. There is a contact email on your screen, so that's the one to use for when you want to follow up with any of your questions. I think I just want to leave with a reflection that we've heard today about the impact of a breakfast club. I'm very excited that this has been a manifesto promise that's been delivered now by the department. And I'm very excited to hear that it not only ensures that children have the good nutrition they need to thrive throughout the school day and support their learning, it also has a huge impact on their well-being, their social activity within school, and lots of other activities that can happen around the breakfast offer. So I wish you well. I wish you happy breakfasts, and I wish you big numbers, because this is what we want to do. We want every child in every school, in primary school, to be able to enjoy what breakfast has to offer. So thanks again for joining us, and we'll be in touch soon. Goodbye.